focuses... So you were a Mormon witch.
I was a Mormon witch, yeah.
I didn't know there was Mormon witches.
Yeah, I think witches exist anywhere women do.
They get kicked out.
They get kicked out or they kick themselves out. Yes, that is what happens.
They take up too much space.
They do.
They're not quiet enough.
Exactly, 100%. I'm going to sleep with this guy and then call out the branch president and be like, look, I know you've just been letting this shit slide.
How stupid can the president of the state be? Yeah. How much of a hypocrite is that dude? I mean... He's going to go down to his grave as a serious hypocrite. So what do you think about Joseph Smith?
I think I might have thought he was a cool dude. Is the truth. I really might have. Like, I don't know. Maybe I would have
Dude, I think he's cooler than these modern day guys.
Well, I think...
So you were a virgin till 23?
Yes. Yep.
Nice.
23, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it got me so far, just waiting that long, to then like lose it on the. But I mean, it was what I wanted to do.
Welcome everybody. This is the Jaden Jeffs Podcast. If you're new here, I left the FLDS cult. Now I'm doing a podcast. Today I have Hallie Ruth with me. She's a former Mormon turned witch. Hallie, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
Me. Thanks. Yeah.
So let's just start by telling everybody a little bit about your early life, where you grew up. You were born in the Mormon church, right?
Yeah, totally. So I am 5th generation local to Teton Valley. It's the other side of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And it was the Mormon church that brought my dad's family here. They were converted by some missionaries in England and landed here, luckily. I really love where I live.
Yeah, it's a beautiful valley.
It's beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about, like, growing up, how your life was.
Yeah, so I am not from a Mormon family that's just, like, Mormon pioneer heritage on all sides. My dad's family, as I mentioned, were Mormons, but they've had a long history of dipping in and out. And my father was not raised Mormon. His mother is Episcopalian. And then my dad converted to marry my mom, who is from another Mormon family around here. And I do feel like my dad's mom has been an influence to like show me other things, and part of the reason why I'm here today, for sure. We were always at church on Sunday, but I would say that like from a pretty early age, I was holding atypical beliefs about Mormonism.
Yeah, people are going to wonder how we met. Let's just tell them that I came to get some herbs for, some witch herbs to cure my allergies.
Okay, that's what we'll tell them.
Yeah, but you do herbs now. Just so everybody knows, you do herbs now.
Yep. I'm an herbalist, and
people can buy your herbs.
Yeah. I wildcraft local useful and medicinal plants and turn them into herbal goods.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're growing up. You have a pretty normal life here in Teton Valley, considerably, all things considered. When do you start having problems with the church? When do you start seeing outside of it?
Yeah, I'd say the first problem that I can recall was when I was 11. I came home and my Sunday school lesson had taken a turn that left me really unsettled. The Sunday school teacher, who was one of my neighbors, brought up this like idea that maybe we'd have to be polygamists in the next life. And I was deeply disturbed because I was like, what? And so I remember I went home and I was practicing my violin, and I'm like practicing my violin and I just break down crying, and my mom like comes from the next room and she's like, what's wrong? And I told her, like so-and-so said this and it's really bothering me. And my mom was like, yeah, that really bothers me as well. But that was like all I ever got from her.
So you were uncomfortable with being a polygamist?
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, actually, I don't know if I should say that. I'm like, now I think I'm like more comfortable, but the idea of this like uncertain future where I might just have to be okay was something I didn't really like feel like I was involved in choosing, which also it's just like insane that I was like 11 and it's like, okay, we're gonna talk about marriage, which of course that wasn't the first time I'd been like talked to about marriage, but that's just like so young.
Yeah, I've always been interested in how the purity culture of the Mormon church truly is. Like, are the young people truly kind of Puritans, or is that just the surface level?
Oh, I was thinking about this yesterday in like thinking about coming on, and I'm glad you brought this up because I was sold and fed this lie growing up that if you were like good at purity culture, you would get the things that are promised. You would, get the perfect marriage and you would be married in the temple. And I will say by and large, the people I know who got that first were definitely like lost their virginity the earliest. And then the ones that actually waited, like, not that, I'm not saying that there's a direct correlation, but it is just such a lie that is sold that purity culture will like make you more valuable in this like market of marriage that is created by the culture. That's just not how it is at all. And definitely like by and large, the people I can think of that were married first in the temple eternally and had the perfect Mormon wedding and stuff were definitely messing around in high school for sure. So
yeah. Why is it that so many of the the young people in the church project like in their minds this idea of morality, but it's almost like to be one of the cool kids, you don't follow the rules. I don't know. I think there's some Mormon families that are truly probably like into purity culture, like they guard their children.
Absolutely.
But there's definitely a bigger group, I feel like,
I would agree. I'd say, I'm just, making up numbers right now, but I'd say probably only like 20% are puritanical that way. And then there are a lot more that are like, yeah, just like more lenient, but also there's still a lot of shame, even if like they're not in practice following the rules. There's a lot of shame.
Yeah. I remember Dad when grandfather was still alive. My dad and so the prophet of the FLDS. Yeah, my grandfather and dad were driving down the road, and they were passing by like BYU or some school or something. And grandfather says something like, there's not a single pure child in there. And he was basically saying, every one of those children have been already had some sort of sexual activity, essentially. And so we were essentially told, like, even the Mormons, everybody, they're not pure sexually, and they're evil.
They're not following their own doctrine and stuff.
They're not.
Yeah. I wanted to like speak to BYU and BYUI and purity culture.
Did you go to BYU?
No, thank God. Like, no, I didn't.
BYUI seems like the lower class of BYU.
Yeah, I did live, I lived a short stint in Provo, and then I live close to Rexburg. Rexburg's only 45 minutes away from here. So I feel like I've kind of gotten pretty good context of both cultures. And like, I will say something that I enjoy about BYU Idaho is that it does bring in more like international students. And so in this interesting way, like it brings in more diversity. But then like the people that have just been here and then go to BYUI, it's like, yeah, I would, like, I mean, for one, it is cheaper, and so what you said, like, I don't know. You can put it on that kind of a hierarchy if you want to, but then it's just, like, I feel like there's even more, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of childish adults at Provo as well, for sure, but, like, BYUI is so fucking weird. Like, yeah,
Rexburg is a strange place.
It's a super
I lived there for
place.
a little while.
Yeah. but what I wanted to say is BYU and BYUI have some of the highest date rape culture of all universities.
What is it?
Date rape culture in the U.S., which I do want to, like...
You mean like you go on a date and...
You're raped by your date, yeah.
Okay.
And I think for me, like, it's just... I mean, this is terrible, but just like a reflection of like what the people's values really are. Like there's all this purity culture that's spoken about, but then there's like some really deep issues surrounding sexuality, and like men and women aren't, you know, on the same, like they aren't perceived on the same level. And then I think that leaves space for the date rape culture to grow that's there. But also the other reason we have stats on that is because everybody's getting an ecclesiastical endorsement and getting interviews and being asked about their sexual life. So I do want to like mention that because that's obviously going to skew the stats. But all that to say, like, date rape culture is really prevalent there, and I do think it is a reflection and a manifestation of the culture's issues that are going on. So
yeah, what happens to a student like if they do something like that? As far as church-wise?
I mean, it does vary bishop to bishop is the absolute truth. Like whoever the leadership is over you, their personal values are going to reflect in the decisions they make for the congregation they're put over. Because there's like a standard that's put out of like a rule book of like, you play it like this if so-and-so does this, but that's not what happens at the end of the day. And so there's a wide range of what might happen to you.
Did you ever have a testimony of President Nelson or
No.
whoever?
No, I think when I was young, President Hinckley was the prophet when I was really young. And like, I don't think there was any sort of genuine like connection I had to him. And now I look back at lots of things he said and it's like, I don't think I would have like liked the guy, you know, but like I was young and I was told like, oh, he's this, you know,
so
prophet.
Yeah. When do you start going from Mormon girl to witch?
I think that the witchiness was starting pretty early. Like I was Mormon girl and witch for a long time, but I remember even like in high school, I think it was when I was 15 or 16, I had this friend who was picking up on these vibes and he would sing, do you know Witchy Woman by the Eagles?
I don't.
Yeah, anyways, every time he saw me, he would like pick up on that. And so I think those things, being perceived as other and thinking outside of the box, which is really what I think most witches are. They're women who are nonconformists, you know? So I was being seen that way in
my
teens.
Do witches control evil spirits or not really?
I mean, I definitely don't know things about that. That's not the kind of witch I am. I'm like... And I don't have, like, an actual concrete lineage, and I do realize, like, there's some women that are witches that have, like, a Wiccan or a pagan lineage that can be tracked. I'm sure I do have, you know, ancestors who knew things that would be considered witchy, but my domain of witchiness is definitely, like, the plant medicine and things like that. So.
Okay.
And then just questioning authorities, you know, and so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so... What happens as you get older that actually pushes you to leave the church? Like,
yeah, it was just this. I mean, even when I was 14 and 15, I saw issues within the culture, and I never believed it was the one and only true church. I remember like testimony meetings. Everybody will go up there and they'll be like, "This is the one and only true church." And even when I was quite young, I was like, there are multiple sects of Mormonism, and they're all saying this about, like, they're the ones with the pure priesthood after the restoration. And I was like, so, like, there's that. And also I was just aware of, like, there's so much more in this world, and I always, like, even at that, like, in my teens, I believed there was truth and beauty in other cultures. So it starts like that. I remember when I was 15, I was talking to a friend who was like, you know, what do you believe about everything? A very Mormon friend. So it's kind of interesting that this like happened, because he's like still super in it and just dedicated and stuff. But he was just asking me about my beliefs, because I guess he sensed like, you're kind of different. And I remember I had been told, I think it's an English poem about the 7 blind men and the elephant. Have you heard this poem?
No.
So I told him that how I felt about like truth and God and everything beyond was like this poem. And in the poem, there are 7 blind men and they're all interacting with an elephant. And one is touching one of its legs and is like, it's like a tree trunk. And then the one that's touching its nose is like, no. It's like a snake. And then the one that's got a hold of its tusk is like, no, it's like a spear. And all of them say what they're perceiving through their feeling. And I remember telling my friend, I was like, I think as humans, like the human condition is that we're walking as blind men and we can all feel into the elephant, which is truth. And we're not wrong in what we're feeling, but our lens and our perspective is limited. So, and that was when I was 15. So I obviously wasn't just like, this is the only true church. Like, I was starting to, see things that really were resonant outside of my faith that I was raised in. And I want to say, like, I definitely felt things that were resonant within the Mormon church, or else I would have been so much more of a rebel and said fuck this so much earlier. So
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so but when do you actually, or what events lead to you actually leaving?
Yeah. So I'm going through this slow process of just exploring more, and then when I'm 21. When I'm 21.
So this isn't even very long ago.
No, not at all. I only sent my official, I haven't been to a church longer than this, but I only sent my official letter to get my records taken off last October. But before that, I hadn't been to church at all in like a year and a half. But when I was 21, I'm already like, my own spiritual personal beliefs are far outside of what like Mormonism is feeding people these days, this moment. And not saying it was totally in line with other historical beliefs that have been put out. But I believe in reincarnation at this point. Like I'm very outside of the box, but I'm still.
So can you tell me if I've been reincarnated?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
I believe you have, but I can't tell you because I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just something that makes more sense to me and resonates more with me than people just like coming down here one time, but also have no idea at the end of the day.
To some degree, that's what Mormonism believes in, too.
But not LDS modern Mormons aren't talking about it. Well, they believe like eternal progression and that your soul's eternal, but not like multiple mortal probations that have.
I don't know.
You don't know? Yeah.
Like that's kind of the Mormon doctrine, right?
Except for mainstream LDS people try to ignore a lot of Mormon doctrine.
But they don't try to ignore that, right? Like this is something that's fundamentally part of like all Mormon culture, right? You are trying to become a god, you die, and then you might get resurrected, that's their belief, but then you can come down to another earth and get born again, right?
Mainstream LDS people do not talk about that. That's one of the things they try to sweep under the rug of like things that have been Mormon that they just don't know what to do with. They're like, and so they're just I never learned that in a church building. We never talked about multiple mortal probations.
So you just thought you got resurrected and then lived happily ever after?
Resurrected and in one of the 3 kingdoms.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the belief of or the teaching of Joseph Smith, I guess, would be someone, if they reach the celestial kingdom, then, they obviously have a bunch of wives and they have a bunch of spirit children.
Mm-hmm.
And then those spirit children come down, or they need an earth to come to. So the father comes down,
Mm-hmm.
gives them birth. And then the savior of the world is preordained to be the savior of the world. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't believe that?
Well, I wasn't told any of that. The whole polygamy thing was only alluded to by that one Sunday school teacher that one time when I was 11, and then the whole rest of my Mormon career, nobody said anything because they're all deeply uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
Because it's never been rescinded from doctrine. So they're like, we don't know what to do because we know we're not doing it right, and so right, but by the doctrine, and so we just don't talk about that, and we just don't talk about race, and we just don't talk about
So what happens after?
Spilled water. So when I'm 21, I'm already just not really at all mentally in it, but I am physically in it. And I have community within it. And I fall in love with a Jack Mormon boy. And
what's Jack Mormon?
Jack Mormon is those Mormons that usually are just struggling with the word of wisdom as it is.
What an important thing. No.
No.
I love how every Mormon that I've ever done anything with almost always has two monsters in the morning.
Right.
And then they're like,
right.
I'm like, hey, do you guys need some coffee?
And
I don't even drink coffee, but I say, hey, do you need coffee? And they're like, oh no, we don't do coffee.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, but you do monsters?
It makes literally no sense. And also, I swear the vast majority of Mormons, and it's right there, easy to find in your Doctrine and Covenants, but it's do you guys read the thing? Because it also says, don't eat meat regularly, only in times of famine, and, when you need to, but, less meat. And most Mormon functions, LDS functions, you're sitting down and eating a whole cow, every single one, And so it's guys, you're not even
sure
referencing the thing you say you're referencing. But yeah, Jack Mormons usually drink some alcohol.
Okay.
And have some sort of a relationship that's probably not the healthiest with that thing going. And anyways, I fall in love with him, and I was kind of on the way out, and he was kind of on the way into Mormonism, and our paths crossed. Our paths crossed when we were at a point where it's we're both not really good at this. But here we are, and we related in so many ways outside of the church, but the church is what it's where we met. And so yeah, we start dating, and as things are getting more serious and we're talking about getting married, I start getting really concerned about the idea of raising a daughter in this church, because I'm if I marry this guy and we have a kid, I'm kind of well, if I have a boy, I think it honestly will be okay enough, even though I think there's a lot of super damaging things going on in the culture for men too. But I just was I don't know how I could raise a daughter and feel right with myself within the church. So I start wrestling with this idea all the time. And at the time, I was working as an apprentice with one of my mentors who was an ex-Mormon, and she was sharing her story of abuse within the LDS church to me, and I was just seeing more and more through her story, and then just other stories I was hearing from people I was acquainted with of just the stuff that goes on that is so wrong with the power dynamic between men and women, and how women are treated.
How are women treated?
I definitely think like it's abuse, but like maybe more covert abuse than like some forms of abuse, but
Okay, like what about the people that say, they're just fine, just go to their house, they're just fine. Like what do you think? I guess I'm just being a little bit of a devil's advocate.
yeah, go for it.
As far as the abuse in the Mormon church,
Yeah.
is there really abuse, or is it just like human nature coming through on different levels of men there?
Mm-hmm. I want to be clear that I don't think the abuse is widespread and in every Mormon home. That's not it. But the thing is, the institution itself does not protect or put like barriers up against that abuse, and because of the values of the culture enables and perpetuates some of the abuse that does happen, is in my perspective directly related to what the culture is perpetuating. Like, men are supposed to preside over women, and like in the temple rituals, which I did go through the temple, like when I first went through the temple, like the amount of times that you as a woman promised to preside, like to let your husband you promised to preside, no, you promised to let your husband preside over you because that's like God's wish or whatever. It was all over the place. And I remember the first time I went through, I was like, surely, because I was tracking, I was like, I know my church is evolving all the time, which it drives me crazy because so many people in the LDS church try to pretend there's like this standard that stays the same through the ages, and no, they're contradicting themselves every decade on all sorts of stuff. But I was tracking that like the temple rituals do change, and I was like, surely like that's not gonna fly for very many years longer. And it didn't, and I think it was just like 3 years later or something, they changed the temple rituals to take most of that language out, but still in the sealing ceremony, so the ceremony for temple marriages, it said this one time, and they had taken it out of every other ritual. And this also was something that would
said what?
That your husband was to preside over you, because that was the divine order of things or whatever bullshit.
Yeah.
And I remember that thing was one of the things that kept eating at me too, when my ex-boyfriend and I were talking about getting married, because I was like, I don't think I can marry you in the temple, because of this thing, because I'm never going to be okay with and I'm not going to commit to something I know I can't do. I'm not gonna, which a lot of Mormons do. So many Mormon women are totally the ones presiding over the household, but I guess everybody can just like, lie about it and shake it off and feel fine. And I think that's like great. Like whatever works for like your personal dynamic, I think that's great. But like I was not okay with like going into like what's supposed to be solemn, sacred ceremony and making a vow that said, I will let this person preside over me, when I knew I never ever was gonna let him. Like, so I'd tell him that, and he's like, I know it's what I'm supposed to do, and I'd be like, and he's like, we don't have to get married in the temple right away, but like down the road, like that's what I need for me. And so yeah, that's ultimately like what broke us. I was like, yeah, I can't do that. And I stopped going to church while we were dating, which really, really scared him. And then, I mean, a couple months later, he broke it off because, I'd stopped going to church, and that was the split. And I was so heartbroken that for a few months, like that next spring, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try to like go back to be with him ultimately. And that didn't work. So
that never works.
No, it didn't work.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of marriages in the LDS that are that way.
Which way?
just one person's there because of the...
Oh, yeah. But I do feel like for most people it does cause,
Did you go to the
internal
Rexburg
conflicts.
Temple?
Oh, so many times. And lots of temples in Provo. Or lots of temples in Provo. There's only 2. The temples in Provo. But yeah, Rexburg was
What do you do in there?
So I actually worked as a temple worker for 6 months.
Breaking your covenants.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to probably tell, like, the big Masonic secret or anything. It's totally all over the internet. You can find it so easy if you want to.
Sure.
But I worked as a temple worker for 6 months, and in the temple...
Did you get paid?
No. Are you kidding?
Okay.
Yeah, no.
I didn't think
Nope,
so.
They take 10% of your income to be a part of the club, and then also if you want to go proselyte for them, they make you pay to do it.
Yeah, that's good business.
It is a way to make a lot of money. Not a very ethical way to make a lot of money, but yeah, tell people that their standing in the next life depends on, if you can fund the church. Anyways, in the temple, they do initiatories, which is an initiatory blessing before you go in for an endowment. And the endowment, the idea is that you are endowed with greater blessings, and it's just a bunch of watered down and bastardized Masonic rituals that, which I was aware of the Masonic undertones of all the rituals the very first time I went through the temple, because my grandfather, who was not Mormon, was a Mason, and all of the temple symbols were on his gravestone. So I'd grown up seeing all those symbols, and I knew they were Masonic. And then the first time I was in the temple, I was like, oh, this is the same. And it's funny because a lot of people are like, I feel like, and maybe I'm totally wrong, but I feel like a lot of people in my community is small. I live in a small town. It's about 50% Mormons and 50% not. And I've lost a lot of my small community on my way out. And I feel like there are Mormons who the internet, got to her and corrupted her mind. But I was just living with my eyes open without really honestly searching the internet. And I was able to piece certain things together. Like, oh, this is Masonic symbols. Oh, that's, interesting. Whereas so many LDS Mormons have no idea that there are Masonic undertones or that it was created.
But what's the problem with Masonic undertones?
Potentially nothing. I don't know enough about, I don't know what all the Masons are doing. I think they're probably doing a lot in the world, and there's stories of them doing good. And every Mason who I've met who has no Mormon influence, I've been like, oh, they seem like a decent person, whatever. And then there's really creepy stories about the Masons, so I have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
But it was just I guess I bring that up because it was at that point in my mind, I was like, oh, this isn't completely unique. Whereas the LDS try to tell you this is so revolutionary, and it's well, it's a blending of many things that existed before. And so, yeah.
Okay, so what happens next?
So, I already said we broke up, which, we were there was a ring, it never got on my finger, but then I stopped going to church. This boy and I break up. I go back to church because I'm missing him so much. I'm so heartbroken. I just cried every day for months and months and months. And so I go back in the spring, but by that time, I think he was reading me right and was like, she's never going to be able to do this. And so we don't get back together.
So he was inspired.
Nah, he was just reading me right. He understood me well, and something I still to this day appreciate about him is I felt like within the culture there was a lot of people that misunderstood me, Whereas I feel like even though ultimately he wanted to choose something different for his life, and I judge him for doing that for sure, he still like had a pretty good pulse on like who I was and how I functioned and what I valued. And he like saw beauty in that. And so like at that point, he was like, she's never going to be able to do this and I need to do this. And so we don't get back together. And I am so mad at this point about all of it. And I know I'm...
All of what?
More, like, all... like
you broke up.
My life, the Mormon church. Like, I'm just mad about, where I was. And also, it was nothing I'd been sold. I totally was one of those Mormon girls that thought I was going to turn 18 and be snatched up by an RM and, like, start having babies, which I've always, like, super loved children, and so I was excited for that aspect. And then I wasn't one of those girls. And so I'm feeling like an old maid. I'm only, like, 23 at this point. So that's also, just funny. But I'm just like, oh, gosh, like, fed up with it all.
I was just going to say, to that point, I went on this date down in Salt Lake, and this girl's like, you're 26. How was that? Like, can you explain that to me in the culture where everybody's married at 18? She's like, you got to have a good explanation for this. I'm like, anyway.
Yeah.
So, I get your point.
Yeah. No, and I still live in the community, the small community I was raised in, and I still am met with Mormon men all the time that are, like, middle-aged and older who will comment on my age and that I'm not married, and also kind of suggest that it's, somehow my fault, too, which is just, like, mind your own business. Like... Sure.
I'm a witch, you bitch.
Yeah, like, why are you commenting on why are you thinking about my love life? Like, ew. But, so I'm so angry, and I know I'm leaving the church.
So you lost the Spirit of God.
There you go. Or I took on the spirit of other deities, who knows? Just kidding. Okay. But, like, no, I'm not feeling like keeping sweet.
You doubted. Your testimony.
Oh, for sure. But I doubted my testimony the whole time. Like, I never had
I'm just being a Mormon elder trying to figure out where you went wrong.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah.
You'll need it.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. So I'm really upset, and I'm watching some micro-political dynamics that are going on within the LDS stake that I live in that are less than ideal, and also kind of the abuse I was referencing earlier of, like, how women are treated versus men. Something I didn't mention is, like, men in the LDS church, like, are not held to the same, like, standard that women are held to, especially in purity culture. Like, LDS boys, they're like, the boys will be boys mentality. It just runs rampant. And then if a woman, I would say it's not even just reduced to purity culture, though. Like, if a woman just takes up too much space, if she speaks her mind, if she says anything that rocks the boat or anything like that, she will, to some extent, be persecuted or canceled or burned at the stake. So, just kidding about, like, literal burning, but, like, metaphorically, like, yeah. And so I was just seeing all these instances that were going on in the stake that were like that, and in the little branch that I was in that was like that. And there was this person in my life. He was a part of the small group that I had, like, he was a part of the group that my friends were all in, and we, for a season, become some sort of friends.
So,
maybe.
Like, what, you mean a person part of the church?
Yeah, he's part of the church, and he is part of the branch presidency. at the time when I'm leaving the
like
church.
Like a counselor or something?
Yeah, I think that was, or yeah, he was a counselor. And we are sort of friends. We like to like do sports together and different things.
How old is he?
A few years older than I was. So he was probably like 27 or 28 and I was 23.
Okay.
Yeah. He and I are sort of friends, but I get to like know more about his personal life, and it also highlights just this power imbalance between men and women that has been eating at me and that like I want to fight against and that's driving me crazy and stuff. So he had been married and divorced. And as I like learn more about him, I come to find out that he was married in the temple eternally for only 9 months. And I then later come to find out that he had cheated on his wife in that short span. And then they got a divorce. And then I come to learn like he was in a disciplinary council. That's a council that the LDS church holds if somebody's disobeying the rules and they have to decide if like they can stay a part of the fold or not, if they have to boot them out, which by the rule book, if you cheat on your spouse and you've been married in the temple, like you by the rule book should be excommunicated. And that is like I've seen that happen for sure. And then you can like if you decide you want to like repent and get rebaptized and rejoin, they'll let you do that. But disciplinary action by the rule book should happen at that point. And in his story, it didn't. They have a disciplinary council. He lived somewhere else. They have a disciplinary council, and they decide, you know what, kid? We're going to let you off the hook because you're a boy, and boys can be boys.
So that's kind of your view of it, is like because he's a boy, he gets let off the hook.
I do think that you are more likely to get let off the hook as a boy with this specific, like, any sexual sins. You have a higher chance of just flying under the radar. Whereas then women, I just told so many stories of women where usually, honestly, they probably were some amount of molested, and then they get the blame put on them. And then they, like, can't take the sacrament or whatever for, like, a really long time, which is a public, like, then people know, like, probably put it together, and then probably, well, don't know. They don't know. They assume that you are just so promiscuous, probably, if you're asked not to take the sacrament. So I'm getting closer with this man, and I learn his personal story. And the branch president, who is like, it's the same position essentially as a bishop that was over the branch that I was attending, he and I are having these, like, we'd already sat down a couple times, and I was like, look, because he'd watched my ex and I break up and that whole thing and was a part of our story, and he was trying to help me. And we'd already sat down a couple times, and he's like, you know, like, what's the problem? And I'd bring up things that I never got adequate answers to, obviously. And, like, blood atonement and all sorts of stuff. We sat down and chatted a lot about stuff that he could not, you know, really help me with. And then it was really hurtful, too, because the first time I stopped attending church while I was still dating that boy, he did send me one long text that was just so patronizing, which is their job, to be over you and patronize you and not treat you like a whole person who can think for themselves. But he just sent me this whole text that suggested that I was going to be, you know, pretty much influenced by the devil, have a horrible life. But, like, he didn't just, like, straight out say that, but he was like, watch yourself. Like, I know how this one turns out.
Yeah.
So he did send me a text like that, and then I, like, leave for a while, and I come back in the spring. So we're in something of a, like, I don't know what to call it. Like, we have a dynamic that's, like, we're kind of, I don't know, like fighting's not even that, but like we have a charged dynamic, this branch president and I. And I come to find out after I have this close friend who is in the same branch presidency as the president, come to find out the branch president had been told by this guy that, so he'd found out his history, so he knew that he didn't get excommunicated, and he wrote it off by like, well, like, it's good enough or whatever, and that was a good move. I did not mean to say that. Can we take that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Anyways, so he knew this guy's history, and he shrugs it off because he likes him, and he gives him, he knew this guy's history before he put him in the council. And that's just another thing, like the LDS church is like a good old boys club. It's who you know in power, and if they like you, then the rule book does not apply.
That's not how it is everywhere, though. That's just how it is.
I'd say there's a lot of places that's going on. And maybe that happens more in like rural places where everybody knows everybody. Maybe. But also I've lived here most of my life. There was that short stint in Provo. And I do feel like even in Provo I did see that dynamic of like,
sure.
If you're liked, especially as a man, then you can climb the hierarchy ladder. And then as a woman, if you're liked, then you get the privilege of being quiet. Like, there's not much you get out of that, honestly. Like, you still get bossed. And, yeah, anyways.
Okay.
So, this branch president knew his history, puts him in the presidency anyways, because he likes him. And then, as he's in the presidency, it turns out this counselor, who I had some sort of a friendship at that time with, was sleeping around with other women in the branch while he was a counselor, and then come to find out the branch president knew. Like, he had told him, like, yeah, look, I did this thing. Sorry, I'll try not to do it again. Just kidding. I don't know what the conversation was like exactly. But what I do know is the branch president knew that he was breaking the rules and let him still have that placement of counselor in the presidency, which, like, just breaks so many of the rules, but that's just happening all the time.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. You know, if he's sleeping with a bunch of women.
Which I don't know how many there were, but he was sleeping with girls in the presidency. So, in the branch. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the president knew. And yeah, it is insane. Because it's like, what are we doing here? Like, if we're not following, why do we have a rule book if we're not ever following the rule book?
Yeah. Okay, so this dude is in the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
You're good friends with him.
I'm some sort of friends with him. Yeah.
You're some sort of friends with him.
Yeah.
You're playing sports or something.
Yeah.
And the president knows he's sleeping with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And you're mad at this boy.
I'm mad at the world. I'm mad at this boy. I'm mad at my ex. I'm mad at Mormonism. I'm really mad at Brigham Young.
Oh,
and so
wow.
I'm like...
I kind of like Brigham Young.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. Well, have fun with that.
What do you hate most about Brigham Young?
I believe, from my perspective, I think the power imbalance between men and women was largely established by Brigham Young. I'm not saying that Joseph Smith was always perfect to women or anything like that, but Brigham Young was the one whose church, the LDS, is really, like, after Joseph Smith died, that was the beginning of split-offs. And the LDS church is one of the split-offs that was Brigham Young's child, was of the lineage of Brigham Young. And I think that the misogyny that exists in Mormon culture is kind of a direct lineage from Brigham Young's misogyny. So that's why I dislike Brigham Young.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I haven't really thought about it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've just thought of Brigham Young as like the settler of Utah, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm just like thinking about his stories of like, which I do think if you have a lot of wives, like I think you start to like, and I'm not even like, I think you could value probably a few people. I'm not trying to like just be like polygamy. It's just like, but if you have,
Don't you be supporting polygamy here.
I'm not supporting it.
Are you giving me a pass for having a few?
Do what you want.
Okay.
But when you have dozens of wives, you're just going to value them less. Obviously, there's no way you could value them as much as you could value 1 or 5, you know? And so that's just, so he, you know.
So for all the guys out there, let's keep it under 5,
under
right?
5?
Yeah.
Like, if that's what you want. If that's what you want, that's what you want.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, if you have dozens of wives, they become chattel.
Yeah,
They become
Brigham
property.
Young had what, 30-something?
No, he had kids with 30-something, but he had 50-something wives
did he?
he was married to. I don't remember, but 50-something. And also there's that story. Do you know about the woman that divorced Brigham Young?
Yeah, the 19th wife.
Okay, you might recall some details. I don't about it, but you know she was like locked in a second-story building and jumped out of a window to escape because when she was trying to divorce him, he was like, "You can't do that to me." And so she had to jump out of a window to get herself free. And so I feel like that is a pretty good illustration of some early Mormon misogyny going on. Yeah, if you're locking up your wives, not very respectful, pretty abusive. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you hate the world, you hate the president of the church.
I'm mad. I don't hate the whole world, but I'm mad.
You're pissed.
Yeah, exactly.
At Brigham Young.
Oh, yeah.
At the church.
Yep.
Okay, so what do you do in this madness?
So in this madness, I know I'm leaving. So I'm like, if I know I'm leaving, why not set some things on fire before I go? And so I have this, like, this makes me look like I'm a whole person. I've got good and bad sides, and this might not be my best side, but I'm like, I'm gonna sleep with this guy and then call out the branch president and be like, look, I know you've just been letting this shit slide and not doing anything about it. And of course, in my head, like, somehow the effects are going to be more far-reaching, and somehow it's going to, like, bring all this this revenge and reform, and, like, which, like, no, it didn't, and of course it wouldn't. And I wasn't ever, like, consciously thinking, like, oh, it will be that impactful, but there was part of me that hoped, you know, this fire would just burn the whole church down somehow. Since I'm sure there's so many other stories that are, you know, similar. So I did, and it was rather easy to do. It wasn't hard to
convince.
Not at all, you know, which I knew it wouldn't be. Which also, I want to say, I was a virgin up till this point.
Oh, okay.
Because I'd actually been trying to, like, do the thing I said I was going to do.
So you were a virgin till 23?
Yes. Yep.
Nice.
23, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it got me so far, just waiting that long, you know, to then, like, lose it on the, but, I mean, it was what I wanted to do. And there was a part of me, do you know Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter?
I don't.
Okay, so, classic, lots of people are gonna be
at me
aware.
for not knowing it. Just kidding.
He's also...
Something with Joseph Smith or something.
No, but he is a transcendentalist writer, so same era, similar era to Joseph Smith, but he's just I think this is his, like, most well-known book, and the whole story, spoiler alert, so if like you don't want to, if you want to read the thing and you haven't, like I'm spoiling the plot now because it's relevant to my story. But I'd been really touched by this book at like, I don't know, 18 or 19, because I was already feeling the effects of feeling like a witch and feeling othered and people like putting me down for speaking my mind and taking up space. So the Scarlet Letter focuses...
So you were a Mormon witch.
I was a Mormon witch, yeah.
I didn't know there was Mormon witches.
Yeah, I think witches exist anywhere women do.
They get kicked out.
They get kicked out or they kick themselves out. Yes, that is what happens.
They take up too much space.
They do.
They're not quiet enough.
Exactly, 100%. So in Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, it is the story of this fictional woman, Hester Prynne, in puritanical times, the Puritans in America. And it's about a witch trial where she gets accused of adultery, which the situation is her husband she was married to was lost for years and years and years. Or I actually don't remember how long, but he was lost and she never knew if he was returning. And she falls in love. She has a child with somebody else, even though she maybe has a husband somewhere. And then after she has this child, which she already faces a lot of social ostracizing because of having the baby that was not her husband's, her husband returns. And then it's this whole thing of, the story is, you don't know who... I actually don't remember. It's been a while since I read it. But come to find out that the man who fathered the child is the, like, minister, the religious leader of the community.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing of, like, a woman has to... Like, she bears a child, she can't hide it. And, like, the purity culture is gonna, you know, be so hard on her. So she has to wear a scarlet letter that's an A for adultery on her clothes, and nobody knows who the father is, while the one who fathered her baby was up preaching sermons every week.
Telling her she needed to put the A on there.
And so I loved that book. I wanted to play Hester Prynne, and so I played Hester Prynne, and I slept with him, and then I did eventually call out the branch president of, like, I know you knew what he was doing. And it was actually in my letter where I got my name off of the records of the LDS church. I had to send it to this guy. And this letter was fabulous, too, because I was like, look, I know, like, what you usually do here is, like, warn me of all the things that are going to happen to me or whatever. But I know all the doctrine, and I, from a Mormon perspective, I know where you think I'll end up, like, in the next life. And if that were...
Where's he going to end up? You sent the letter to the president, or... To
the branch president.
The guy you slept with.
To the branch president.
Okay.
Which then the guy I slept with found out, and I think then he was rather... mad at me or something.
Sure.
Which we hadn't, talked in a while after this, like, happened and stuff. But, like, he's moving on, and I think he has a woman, and, like, probably gonna marry her in the temple or something. Anyways.
He's gonna get some sort of karma based on your witchery.
Or maybe he already has. Maybe that was it. In my letter, I had to talk to this president so he could take my names off, and so in the letter I was like, I know where you believe I'm gonna end up, and obviously I'm not convinced that's what happens to us after death, but also if that was what happened to me after death, if I was just like in the lowest kingdom or something, the lowest kingdom is supposed to be like Earth without war. I really don't know what more I want. Like honestly, like, whoever wants those streets of gold and stuff, like, they can have that.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna need. I need the streets of gold. I need
a
all that.
white pearly
Yes.
whatever. No, I want the mountains and the ocean and no war. I think that'd be perfect and lovely. And then I don't have to be a polygamist wife too.
Okay.
It honestly sounds
Yeah.
like a great deal for me if they're
All right.
right. So
Yeah.
I tell him that too. And I call him out, to which he never, like, owned up to me, you know, like, anything. And also, he did not take that guy out of his position. He's still a counselor this whole time. Years have passed, and this dude is still a counselor. And after my letter, it's not like anything happened. He was still a counselor for a while, and then I heard he'd been released. But then, like, I ran into the branch president at the grocery store, like, a month and a half ago or something. It was so awkward because he was uncomfortable because I'd made him uncomfortable.
Were you like, dude, are you holding up the rules of the gospel? Or
I should, just every time I see him, be like, are you doing your part? Like,
dude, I would go off. I mean, basically, what you constantly hear, if you go to the Mormon church, you're lectured about morality. If you do anything with the Mormons, you're lectured about morality. You're judged about morality. Mm-hmm. You're told all this stuff about morality. And then this guy can just sleep with you and a bunch of other girls. And the president of the stake is kind of like, oh, it's all right. Mm-hmm. And then he goes and, you know, corrects and does a bunch of things to a bunch of, you know, little members in the community because they're having these, you know, they looked at their, you know, this dude or this girl looked at some other dude or went to dinner with him or something, and so she's getting cut off the church and all this other stuff. All this stuff is happening. Mm-hmm. I think when I came to investigate the Mormon church, mm-hmm. I knew this was bullshit was happening. I could smell it so far away. Yeah. These hypocrites are so evil. And I would love to have a conversation with that president of the stake. You know, how stupid can the president of the stake be? Yeah. How much of a hypocrite is that dude? I mean, he's going to go down to his grave as a serious hypocrite. And I don't mean like I'm probably more of a witch than you now, but like that is a serious level of stupidity. How stupid does that dude have to be? Well, you know what I'm saying?
I hear
both those guys. But the president of the stake, he knows all this stuff is happening. He's lecturing about morality. He's telling all these people. He's correcting all these people. And then he just sits by and kind of laughs. Like, how stupid do you have to be? How much of a dumbass?
But what I want to say is the culture breeds this behavior. Because this guy, like, in the view of, like, all the leadership I know throughout the stake or have come into contact with my whole life, this guy, like, I would love to sit here and hate him through and through, but honestly, he was so much better, less creepy, more well-balanced than a lot of the bishops are, but the culture breeds this kind of hypocrisy,
so you're
especially in men.
You're saying, as a human, you liked him better, even though he was such an idiot, such a hypocrite. How can you be true to yourself in your personal life if that's how you treat other people, if that's how you're doing a bunch of things? How can you be true to yourself, but then you're just saying like, oh, all the other bishops and people I knew sucked way worse than him because they're probably doing it way worse there. That is fundamental to the culture of the Mormon church, is pure hypocrisy.
Totally.
Men
100%.
are pure hypocrites. How can they bear to sit there and be such hypocrites? You know, standing up there preaching all the time and then doing all this shit and then making it make sense in their own mind.
And then the women enable this behavior by standing by them through it all. Because I know lots of people see it and then they do it because, I don't know, it's all they know or whatever. But yeah, no, it's a serious lack of integrity in the truest sense of the word. It's a serious lack of integrity. And you see that in all the leadership of the LDS. Just a lack of actually being true and whole to what you profess.
And I would just say to the Mormons watching and to everybody that gets on me and is like, why do you hate the Mormons? And I don't hate them, but why do you, you know, sit there and whine and get into these big disputes with Mormons? And I would just say, like, explain this. Come to me, explain it. Not a single Mormon has offered to come explain this type of stuff. They sit there behind their couch. If you'll come talk to them, they'll talk to you about the gospel. They'll bear their testimony about Joseph Smith, and they'll read you the Book of Mormon. And then when you ask a hard question, they slide under their couch like a little bitch.
Because they can't reconcile it. They can't.
Yeah.
And you have to stay in the Mormon church if you are a cognitive, like if you are thinking, there has to be mental gymnastics if you're thinking about it. Which, like, I definitely, when I was in it, I was doing some of that for sure. And then it just got to a point where it's like, I cannot hold all this. Because I've known for a long time, it doesn't check out. It doesn't make sense. I see the hypocrisy, and to stand by it would be to enable and support this behavior. And, So no.
Yeah.
Boo.
Don't
do that.
100%. I will never accept that you can be a good human and just sit there and act like all that stuff is okay. I just you can be kind of a good person and be nice to everybody and walk around like you're nice to everybody, but you can't be my friend. I will ask you questions about that shit.
Yeah.
And you're not going to like me asking questions because you're going to have to change.
Yeah.
Or something.
I want to mention also this branch president is a teacher at BYUI. And so that's like the kind of leadership you have.
Typical BYUI bullshit.
Professor right there. That's, so.
God. I appreciate a lot of things about the Mormon culture. I get along with a lot of people, probably because of how I was raised, that are from the LDS. But this kind of stuff...
Only to an extent.
Only to an extent.
Yeah.
But this kind of stuff just... It makes me upset. And it also makes me really grateful that I never joined, like, for a minute after. Because once you do something... you have a bias and a reason. Like any person that, for example, if you went from the FLDS to the LDS and you're just in it and part of it, and I come along and be like, that's stupid, you're going to look for every possible reason why you did what you did.
Totally.
And I didn't want my mind to have any bias looking at the Mormon church because I had joined it or any other religion or group. Like once you join a group, your mind is automatically biased. And it's true that now my mind is probably biased towards what I did, and I'm trying to find good reasons. But so far, like, I would say that's the least possible biased you can be, and, to not be part of anything. And I don't know. Now I see every reason why I shouldn't join the Mormon church.
Which I definitely was intrigued by, like, the FLDS, like, all through my adolescence, whereas, like, most LDS people tried to, like, ignore their existence or whatever. But for me, there are, like, I was aware as I was leaving, too, that, like, just, like, the control aspects of cult behavior are, like, definitely going on in the, like, it's in my, opinion, it's a cult, too. And, like, I was, like, there's a lot of similar, issues and problems with giving yourself to something like that.
Yes, because the truth about what's going on in, like, that guy's mind, the president of the stake, and those other people's minds, they couldn't give you a logical explanation for why they did something. But to them, they've made sense. Whenever you have a group of people making something make sense that doesn't make sense, so they can't explain it to other people, but within themselves, they kind of understand it. Like, oh, we made this made sense.
Group justification.
Yeah, that's like a cult.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. So what other things make the LDS a cult? Just like,
I mean, that's the meat.
What about their prophet? I wonder what their prophet would say to me about this stuff. I would love to ask him, like, dude, what about this situation?
Yeah.
Oh, there's situations.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and
what a faithful prophet up there giving us April 6th lectures. How lovely. Read some more from the Doctrine and Covenants.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I felt such a power. God.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what he would say. I don't know that much about, like, the personality of Mr. Nelson. I don't know. But for me, a lot of, like, the things that I did resonate with in my youth about Mormonism are relics, honestly. And now, like, the modern Mormon church is just, like, getting farther and farther from anything that I valued about the culture, really, honestly. And so, yeah, leave them to it.
So what do you think about Joseph Smith?
I think I might have thought he was a cool dude, is the truth. I really might have. Like, I don't know. Maybe I would have
Dude,
even been...
I think he's cooler than these modern day guys.
Well, I think...
He was willing to face the consequences of his actions. I think to some degree, at least.
And he just, I mean, in ways, there are certain things, and I don't know his whole life. I know the bits as they have been told to me and as I have studied, but there are certain things that he valued that I value, and one of those things being, like, he was very much against allopathic medicine. He was very for, like, curing yourself
What's
with herbs.
allopathic medicine?
Modern Western medicine. He thought it had...
Pharmaceutical medicine.
Yeah, he thought it had potentially killed his brother Alvin.
Oh.
And so at that point, and that happened when he was young,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Him and President Nixon have a fight to have.
Exactly. And this is also a thing of, like, yeah, like, President Nelson is not, like, my guy at all, because that's not my thing.
So you've got some stuff in common with Joseph Smith here.
I like that. I also like the whole, like, interesting kind of pagan aspects of what was going on with his life, of, like, he translated the Book of Mormon using rather, like, divination sort of witchy techniques, allegedly, you know?
Was he on mushrooms?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I've heard quite a few stories that it's pretty likely.
And maybe, and also, yeah, I think, yeah, maybe I would have liked him. Maybe I would have joined his church. Maybe I would have loved him. Who knows? And also, I don't think he was, like, a perfect dude.
There's this big group of people now that are trying to prove he didn't start polygamy.
Oh, but I also am not sure if he really did. Remember?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he does. It is crazy that he doesn't have any children.
That's what
that
I'm
is
saying.
Insane.
So I want to touch on this. When I was 15, I was in seminary at high school, which is like a Mormon class. They take you out and talk to you about Mormon stuff. And for an hour every day and whatever.
Just outside, or?
In our school, we had a building across from the street from the school building. And so all the Mormons would walk across the road and go,
getting you primed for that general conference when you watch the 12 apostles stand up there and read a little passage and you're like, oh, I felt that. Bullshit.
Yeah. In seminary, my seminary teacher, who I also, again, like, personality-wise, outside of him being, like, a authority to me in that context back when I was in the church, like, I'm not trying to say, like, he's a fine guy, whatever, you know? And if he hadn't have been, like, an authority over me, I would probably have less issue with him, period.
Sure.
But the seminary teacher... he was just, like, a really irreverent guy, too, which was always fascinating to me.
Irreverent?
Yeah, just, like, jokester, just not very, like, you know, and it was weird to me because, for me, something in me, like, wanted, like, religion to be, like, more serious or something, and so I, like, kind of had this thing with him. It was tense because I was always getting in because I was a little witch, so I, like, you know.
Yeah.
But I remember the lesson on polygamy. Like, 1 year we would study the Doctrine and Covenants, 1 year we would study the Old Testament, 1 year we would study the New Testament, and 1 year we would study the Book of Mormon. In the year that we were studying the Doctrine and Covenants, I remember the whole section 132 lesson and stuff. And he starts it and he's like quoting, some leadership bullshit from the past and stuff. And it's all like, the whole reason polygamy happened is to bring more spirits born into the fold, into the, and so I'm like, okay, I'm like listening and stuff. Later that same lesson, so less than, an hour and a half later, he's like, as far as the church can tell, because the church has been doing DNA testing and stuff because they want to figure it out too, because they have no idea what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
He's like, as far as we can tell, Joseph Smith actually didn't have any children with anybody besides Emma. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That was the whole point. You just said so, I do feel like there's solid, concrete evidence that he did have an affair with Fanny Alger. And then all the rest of the stuff, I don't know, I think it could be fabricated. And so...
It is insane that he didn't have children with somebody else.
And also, there's 26 or 27 other women that signed affidavits, because immediately after he died, there's this, like, Emma's family's like, no, he didn't. And Brigham Young's like, yes, he did. And there are 27 women that signed affidavits that they had, like, slept with Joseph Smith. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, back in that day, like, somebody would have turned up with a baby. And all of them would have wanted one. Like, if they're sitting there being like, oh yeah, I was married as a spiritual wife to the prophet. They all wanted his baby. Okay, maybe not. But, like, no, they probably all, if they signed
they want
up,
to have a kid.
They would
with
love
this
to
guy.
have Joseph Smith's baby in that cultural context, so that none of them did. Super fishy, makes no sense. And also, some of those women that signed those affidavits become Brigham Young's wives.
The modern day church's explanation of polygamy pisses me off. I've talked to several different Mormons, and they're like, there was this war, and all these women didn't have husbands. There wasn't enough husbands, so we lived polygamy.
I've heard that one back in the day too.
They have all these bullshit reasons. It's like, dude, have you ever read 132? He's like trying to figure out why David and Solomon had a bunch of wives. Like, that's what it says.
That's what
it was
says.
Nothing to do with this war. It was nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah.
This was a doctrine. And like, the modern day Mormons will almost all tell you they got taught from somebody. And it comes from
there was a lack of,
it comes from the church leadership trying to figure out what should we tell all our members about this?
So they don't freak out and leave.
Yeah, and so the common Mormon will tell you things like that. Oh, there was this war, and so there wasn't enough dudes, and so they lived polygamy.
Yeah, never mind that actually Brigham Young said you have to have 3 wives to get to the celestial kingdom. So joke's on you, everybody that's still in the LDS church, because you only have 1 wife, so you're not getting there anyway.
Yeah,
which that doctrine has never been rescinded, only swept under the rug.
Yeah, like in the early days, you absolutely had to have 3 wives to become an apostle. Yeah, and that's how it was in the FLDS too. You absolutely had to have 3 wives to be even a bishop, I think.
Every time I see Mormon missionaries out and about, I'm like, I should just go and hit them with this one. Like, so do you know about, like, you actually need, like, 3 wives, And I know they'd be like, what are you saying? Like, they wouldn't know how to deal, but...
Mormon missionaries, they're so ignorant about fully what they're doing. It's insane. I've talked to several.
And they're so young. Like, 18's 18. And sure, it's a young adult. And also, like, for boys, the frontal lobe of your brain isn't developed for another, like, 7 years. And so they're groomed.
So is mine, fully developed.
I
think we're getting there.
Yeah.
I make the wisest decisions now. It's insane. Yeah, I talked to some missionaries several times on my way out of the FLDS.
Gosh, I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for that.
I was like, these guys
just don't know shit.
No. I talked to some bishops too. I've talked to several presidents of stakes and bishops on my way out.
Yeah.
Of the FLDS. And they all want me to join terribly bad, but
Sure.
Yeah, they can't answer. They
No,
can't answer
no.
the questions.
Somebody like you, or your kind, they
Yeah.
really won't know what to do at all.
They can't answer the
No,
questions.
no.
So the thing about it is, a lot of times I would go and sit in with them, and initially we would just be friends, and they would be like telling me all these things about the gospel and all this stuff. But as soon as you really put pressure on them, it's so uncomfortable and it's hard to even be friends anymore. So a lot of times, a lot of them would feel like I was a good friend with them. And then I would start asking some serious questions. And they're like, oh, we've never
Totally.
even thought about
totally,
that.
100%. Yeah.
Well, do you have any other stories or Mormon doctrines or bullshit that we should know about? Or which
I feel
things?
Like surely there's stuff.
Before we forget, you should mention your herbal website.
Yeah. So I'm an herbalist, and my business is Wildborn Wellness, and there you can buy my herbal goods that I make out of pristine, mostly wild-crafted medicinal herbs.
Right along with Joseph Smith on the
on the plant medicines and making your own medicine. Yeah. I think that definitely speaks to me, and like just like earth-based things, like and I feel like there used to in Mormonism be more earth connection.
There was.
And now
LDS I would say
people are
the FLDS are definitely that way.
Sure.
Where they try to avoid, and this is a whole thing, right? Because a lot of FLDS people, some of them didn't get the care they needed, and maybe some of the Kingston group and people like that, they didn't get the care they needed. So they a lot of times will say, oh, we didn't get to go to the doctor or things like that. And to me, it's like, yeah, there was situations where you needed to go to the doctor.
Totally.
But there's also a lot of good ways that even my mother, a lot of times when I needed something, she had like some herbs or some sort of tea or something good that really did help me out in the most natural way. And it was great.
100%, yeah. Yeah, which used to just be everybody's, like before allopathic medicine, everybody had to know more about helping themselves out. And also I do want to put a little plug in, like if I was ever in a car crash, God forbid, so grateful that allopathic medicine has the technology it does, and I do think it is amazing emergency medicine. But for like all the other stuff that
like
is
my
allergies, then I do think usually it actually is not about healing people. It's about
money.
Yep, money, masking symptoms, giving people drugs that will give them other problems so they can give them more drugs. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm big on natural things. They make you feel incredibly well. Yeah. But I got my hand cut, and I was getting sedated and everything for like 3 days. And man, I've never been more grateful for doctors.
Sure.
I got out of there and I was just like, thank God for those doctors.
Sure, totally. Great emergency medicine, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to talk about some more Mormon bullshit.
We have plenty.
Brigham Young.
Sure. Brigham Young. Oh, and Brigham Young. We can go there.
Okay. Let me tell you the thing I like about Brigham
Young. Okay.
I don't think that a different person really could have settled Utah the way he did. Like Joseph Smith, I feel like was too. He was too much of a rule follower to do what Brigham Young did. The Mormon Church is strong because Joseph Smith was a martyr, for one. That was the best thing that ever happened for the Mormon Church. Joseph Smith being a martyr. And for two, they needed a brutal dude like Joseph Smith or Brigham Young to make Utah what it was and to put the church, like Brigham Young said after Joseph Smith got killed, he said, I would never do what Joseph Smith did and go to the prison. We're going west. And Joseph Smith talked about that, but he never truly felt like they should actually do it. I mean, he, according to the rumors, he did, but Brigham Young was this guy that was like, you put out a warrant for my arrest, you're never catching me. You know, you're not going to get the chance to kill me.
Yep. And to speak to his strengths, which I'm not at all saying that he was a decent guy, because that's not at all what I think. But he, it seems to me, was also more capable of setting up functioning systems than Joseph Smith seems to me maybe a little more disorganized, a little less capable of controlling and organizing a group like that. And like Brigham Young set up the grid system. And also, at the end of the day, I'm really glad I ended up here, and if it weren't for Brigham Young, I wouldn't be in this beautiful valley right now. So there's that. But I'm not going to give him very much. Like, yeah.
I get what you're saying. There's this lady, what is her name? She did a bunch of podcasts about Joseph Smith's wives.
Okay. Yeah,
but yeah, she thinks Brigham Young is like the worst too. Yeah. And I get it. I get like blood atonement.
I was about to say we have to talk about blood atonement.
But
we're
I
going
feel
to talk about Brigham Young.
Like that was something that growing up, I 100% just believed in.
Oh, that's wild, and something I hadn't even like heard spoken out loud until my adult life. But because I'm always finding things that are supposed to be hidden or whatever, when I was like 12 or something, I found this book, I think at Deseret Book, that was talking about blood atonement, and I just pulled it out for like an hour or something, and I somehow found it, and I was like, it didn't give details, but I remember at that time when I was that young, I was like, it made me upset, it made me emotional, like I felt nauseous at this idea. Do you want to explain blood atonement? Because do you think the viewers have
Yeah,
context?
I actually think that it's actually quite common in religions back in the day, you know. A Muslim religion, blood atonement is, I guess, maybe they wouldn't call it that, but it's probably kind of a mainstream idea in Muslim culture.
Okay, but like in Christianity, no, because the whole idea, like outside of Mormonism, you know, and maybe there's things I don't know about, but like the idea is Christ came and atoned.
Yes, that's true.
For all.
So blood atonement basically says that if you're part of the kingdom of God, if you're part of the church and you commit adultery, the best thing for your soul is to shed your blood. Mm-hmm. And if you're a part of Mormonism and you turn apostate, the best thing for your soul is to shed your blood.
Holy shit.
Right. That's the doctrine, right? And Brigham Young, one of the things I kind of like about Brigham Young is modern Mormons are kind of the opposite, where they can't stand, they believe something. A lot of the church leaders believe some of this stuff, but they can't say it. They can't articulate it. They can't say anything. They're way too embarrassed or whatever it is.
Do you think that's the same with like old doctrines surrounding race? Do you think that the current leadership? No. Yeah.
And I think the church has done a good thing in like changing the race thing, but they're still hypocrites about it.
I also want to say, from my rendition of this story, I think all the insane race stuff you can attribute to Brigham Young for the most part, because Joseph Smith baptized a few black people, and then Brigham Young was the one who I think was the ardent racist.
You're probably right. Yeah, Joseph Smith was a pretty nice guy in general, and
only lied to his wife probably once.
and he was for the freeing of the slaves. You know,
and then Brigham Young was not, right?
I don't know. I think Brigham Young actually supported the North in the Revolutionary War.
Okay. I don't know that piece. But then, like, obviously, he, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he said the Revolutionary War was basically God's way of preserving the Mormons during the time because they were going to send the army out to Utah. And then that
Civil War.
Yeah,
War.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
the war for the freedom of the Yeah, not the revolution. Did I say the revolutionary?
Yeah, all good. Yep.
Yeah, same thing. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Anyway, but Brigham Young, his sermons, he's not shy at all.
Sure.
And I feel like most people are too shy to say to talk like Brigham Young. That's something I appreciate about him.
Well, okay, great to be blunt and open, but also
reconsider.
Exactly. If your core beliefs are like that, reconsider. Have somebody talk you out of it, like reevaluate. And also I wanted to circle back to like blood atonement because it was also a thing that was on my way out, deeply disturbing to me. And I do also feel like, and I don't know this for sure, but there's like creepy accounts of like back in the day, Brigham Young's kind of like secret police taking out people who should be taken out by his standard and doctrine. And like from my understanding, which is super limited, but I do have like one historical account that was written by a journalist that the mainstream modern church tries to be like, she's lying, whatever, you know. But it's pretty disturbing. It's about this woman who was like a mother with 2 kids, and these secret police show up at her place and like disembowel her in front of her kids. And there's also like other creepy stories of like finding women's bones in the desert. And I do feel like because women were the lowest on the hierarchy, with a dangerous situation when secret police might be taking you out for the head honcho, like, I feel like women would have been the most vulnerable demographic there.
I believe that kind of stuff might have happened in Brigham Young's day, and even at his direction. I think Orrin Porter Rockwell was someone that would do anything for Brigham Young, including anything like that. Yeah. And, Orrin Porter Rockwell is kind of a celebrated figure in the modern church.
Totally.
But those guys have no idea. I remember I was sitting down with some missionaries, and I told them this story about Orrin Porter Rockwell. I said, did you guys hear that story about Orrin Porter Rockwell where there was this guy that went and saw Brigham Young, and Brigham Young basically said, you won't make it out of Utah territory alive, because the guy came and he was cursing Brigham Young or whatever, and Brigham Young says this to him. Well, Orrin Porter Rockwell was coming into Utah, and this guy tells Orrin Porter Rockwell, hey, Brigham Young said I wouldn't make it out of Utah territory alive. And he's laughing, and Orrin Porter Rockwell pulls out his gun and shoots him and says, well, you didn't.
Wow. Did they even know who that was? Had they even heard? Or
I
were
don't
they like,
even.
What is he talking about?
This is a story that I heard from when I was little. And I'm not even sure the source. I'm not even sure how true it is.
But did the missionaries know about...
Oh, no. The missionaries.
Yeah.
The missionaries were like, what? I've never heard that.
Totally.
I laughed. Yeah. I was like, yeah. That's kind of how Brigham Young was. That's what I was telling the missionaries. I was like, he was that kind of a guy.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay.
Yeah. Which this kind of reminds me of something that I've like deconstructed on my way out that I do think is really problematic. That is a part of every Mormon culture, because it is in the first chapter of the Book of Mormon. But like in Mormon doctrine, God-directed violence is like okay sometimes. And so if God tells you to chop off the head of Laban or whoever, never mind maybe that God voice in your head, like, you know? And so in this like thought process, even though you're not seeing like widespread violence all over the place or anything, I do think this kind of mentality does leave room for, like, what happened with the DeBells. Or, like, also in just the culture, like, people are more comfortable with, like, violent movies than, like, sex scenes. And that's a really interesting, like, like, the way they're prioritizing, like, morality, like, that sexuality, just to even if it's just, like, sexuality between two people, that it's totally consensual and should be totally, like, ethical in most people's minds, like, that is probably considered worse than killing somebody if it's killing the right person because, like, God told you to or whatever.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, that is, like, crazy. Yeah. And as I was coming out of it and seeing that more, I was like, whoa.
That's true. I remember before I'd left the FLDS, but I'm kind of out.
Uh-huh.
I was watching a movie with Mother
a
and a few other people.
Uh-huh.
And, yeah, we could watch kills. Like, people getting killed and stuff. But the minute that somebody started kissing or more, everybody was like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
And coming from the FLDS, everybody was just like, oh, let's turn this off.
we can watch people, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, none of that. Yeah.
Okay, but I think that somebody like Brigham Young, I'm not defending the bad things he did. I'm just saying,
but you see some of his
I don't think the Mormon church. Well, I think of him more like you might think of some, you know, the movie like The Godfather. Those
I haven't seen it.
Oh, but those families in New York. You know, I think it's based on a real story.
It's like the mafia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of it kind of like that. You know, I think of like people in the past that we kind of celebrate, but we know they were kind of bad people. You know,
Brigham Young mob boss vibes. Okay, yeah.
Brigham Young mob boss. But he had enough common sense to bring mostly peace. Even though it was
for his people,
right? Even though it was in the Mormon context, and he probably did do a lot of things.
And maybe the women secretly had no peace, that they were dying on the inside, but you know.
Got it.
I don't know. I can't speak for everyone, but definitely that woman that jumped out of a second-story window.
That's crazy.
She obviously wasn't feeling peace. But,
yes.
Yeah.
And I guess my point is, I don't defend that.
Yeah.
But that's what you can expect kind of from a mob boss.
Yeah.
So.
Fair enough.
And I do think Brigham Young was better than some of the alternatives. Where other people probably would have been much more violent and much more enforceful of their ways, and then it probably would have been done it to the degree that they wouldn't have been able to like maintain their hold on Utah, you know, as the Mormon culture. Whereas Brigham Young actually had quite a bit of wisdom in not going too far and that kind of stuff.
Like a capable political leader.
He understood power very well. In his time, in his era, he understood power very well. Does it fit into the modern age? No. Was there a lot of other people that kind of established or settled Western areas or even the United States that were a lot like him? Probably. Like a lot of people that were rough.
Totally. It was the Wild West.
Yeah. And would modern people accept it? No, not at all. Probably none of them. Probably wouldn't
unless they lived at that time. And then
but if they lived at that time, I'm saying
and maybe they did
Brigham
live
Young,
at that time.
Brigham Young was a genius in his era.
Yeah.
For power.
Yeah.
For establishing Utah and stuff. That's what I'm saying I admire about him. I don't admire the bad parts.
Yeah. Yep.
Are you sold on Brigham Young yet?
Not at all. Never will
I'm not putting a picture of him on my wall or anything.
My sister and I, sometimes my older sister and I sometimes joke that we're going to make these t-shirts that are like Brigham Young's face and it just says like blame it on Brigham. Uh-huh. Yeah, I think I'll hold that. I'll continue holding that, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You can put that up on your medicine website.
They'll be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because,
more medicine.
Lots of people who, come to me in that context have no idea about the ex-Mormon piece.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. More. We'll start a new website called Mormon Medicine. And put that shirt on there.
There we
go. What do you think about the church getting rid of polygamy?
I think that it is a good example of what the LDS church does, which is crumble under like pressure from the outside, and then they always try to frame it like that's not what happened, but pretty much all changes you can look at from the LDS church, that is exactly what happened. They usually kind of move towards what like the overculture's status quo is, but just usually somewhere between 30 and 70 years later than everybody else after they've done all sorts of damage.
You know what I think about the Mormon church getting rid of polygamy? They didn't have a leader like Brigham Young.
Uh-huh.
If that would have been Brigham Young, I think, and Brigham Young may have not been right for that situation.
Uh-huh.
But if they had somebody stronger, willing to stand up and say, look, guys, and explain it to the people better. Like, we got to stop doing this because our lands and everything are going to be taken. And not be so shy about it and just be like, it's God's will kind of a thing. And not write a manifesto but keep trying to do it and all this other stuff. Like, they didn't have a vision of the future at all when they were getting rid of polygamy. That's why it's such a mess. They thought they were going to kind of stuff it under the rug for a while, so they wrote the manifesto, kept doing it.
Kept doing it, yeah, totally.
Then they get put under...
So they lied to everybody.
Right.
Then,
They get put under more pressure, and, like, they don't have a vision of the next 100 years at all.
Yeah.
I think if they would have had a leader with a vision of the next 100 years, they could have made that whole situation way better for the church. Better. For the church.
Which, I mean, they're... I don't know if they're losing or... I mean, they're probably growing right now. They're losing, like, pioneer stock Mormons in droves. Like, kids of my generation are, like, not up for the bullshit, But then they did a pretty, since they kept proselyting missionaries, they have been pretty successful at continuing to grow the church, even without the polygamy bit.
Yeah. I guess the thing I hate so much about the modern church is the hypocrisy that we talked about earlier. The constant hypocrisy, whereas somebody like the early leaders of the church... You don't have that level of hypocrisy, really, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, they're like, well, it wouldn't make sense that such a young religion would, for one. But I would say in the short history that is Mormonism, the LDS Church, it's just crazy how much they have contradicted themselves and gone back on their word and stuff. But of course, it would make sense that at its foundations, it would have remained with integrity for what it was, you know, or else they had nothing. But then at this point, they can keep members without committing to their own beliefs. Because that's not what it's about anymore. Yeah. It's about money and control. And
it reminds me kind of like the Catholic Church a little bit. It's getting more that way. It seems like the Catholic Church... There's some good aspects of it. There's going to be some people mad that I'm comparing them, but...
I think this actually all the time, but something I also think is, like, obviously the Catholic Church has had so much longer to, like, be all over the place, and that kind of just makes sense. If an institution is going to survive that long, it's going to evolve. But the thing is, Mormonism has only existed for not that long. And it's like been just the whiplash and the gaslighting is super intense. Like, okay, like all over the place.
But I'm not so sure the Catholic Church didn't go through that.
Oh, I think there has been some of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just not as whiplashy because it's not in as short of a time frame.
Right. Yeah, the Catholic Church has been there so long, and that's their advantage now. Is they've just been there so long. They consider themselves to be the original Church of Jesus Christ. You know.
Totally.
And honestly, I don't even know that much about Catholics. I think they have some beautiful buildings though.
Yeah, they do.
Their glass stained windows and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys were doing some mushrooms.
And
do you believe that?
Oh, in the whole span of the Catholic Church, absolutely that has happened at times. Like I'm not, you know,
like those glass stained windows come.
I think sometimes for sure they were inspired by
psychedelics.
Or psychedelics, visions. Yeah. I really like the kind of the rituals that Catholicism, not even in what they're necessarily affirming, because I also am just not ever gonna return to religion because I couldn't ever. But I do think something that I liked about Mormonism was there was still ritualism within the culture, whereas so many places and spaces in our modern world are lacking intentional ritualism. There's ritualism all over the place that just goes on, but to have a place where people congregate and do some sort of ritual together felt good for my witchy soul.
Okay.
And so I think I kind of actually enjoyed temple participation, even if what we were affirming was definitely not completely resonant to me. To go through ritual together, I enjoy that. And so when I observe Catholics with rosary beads and doing their prayers and stuff, there's something about that I don't know, I enjoy.
You yeah, that's a good point. I guess that's a big thing a lot of people don't like about the Mormons is the rituals.
They're kind of creepy. Yeah.
But rituals have always been a part of religion, and if people truly are a part of some special ritual, they feel better if they believe in it, if they feel good about it.
Yeah,
they love it. People love it.
Been a part of humanity for so long, and it serves its purpose, and also getting to the core of what values are being affirmed through ritual, I do think is now at the forefront of my brain always.
Yeah. So do you do rituals as a witch?
As a witch, a little bit of that. I'm like I said, I don't have a lineage of, I'm a Wiccan or anything like that. I'm not, but I have a lot of earth appreciation, and if I pray to the earth, prayers of gratitude. Generally speaking, that's what I pray. Because I think earth worship is so beautiful because it's rooted in the physical of what we can for sure know. Yep, the ground you can touch. And so for me, that feels really good. And I like to burn some sage, burn things like that, to cleanse my space that way, and interacting with the natural world has definitely become my religion. So.
Yeah, so you're not into any of this spiritual stuff.
Oh, I definitely muse about it. And like I said earlier, I have some beliefs, but I would never say I know. Whereas there's a lot of encouraging in Mormonism to push people to say they know. And I think that there's just a level of real humility to be a human that I think it's important to try to maintain some level of humility when it comes to spiritual, because I personally don't believe we're gonna perceive the whole elephant in our human condition as it is. I think we'll always just be feeling the trunk and tail and nose, and we're feeling something, and I believe something's there, but I can't tell you for sure what it is.
Yeah. Okay, well, Hallie, thanks for coming.
Yeah,
anything
thanks
else to say?
Me. I think I feel complete.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the Mormon president of the stake and whoever else is out there doing this bullshit. Not even specifically that one, but sure, that one if he's watching.
Okay.
Like, get your mind straight, dude.
Get it together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hallie, for coming. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out.